In this week's Parsha of Va'era, we read about 7 of the 10 plagues that God inflicted upon the Egyptians. The second plague was Tzvardeya, the plague of frogs. It was a very interesting plague, with many struggling to understand what was the purpose and function of this plague. Even more interesting, perhaps, is the way this plague ends. In Exodus chapter 8, verse 4, the Torah says, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Pray to God to remove the frogs from me and my people, and I will send forth the people so they may sacrifice to God." In the next verse, Moses replies to Pharaoh, "Show off at my expense," he says. "For what time should I pray that God should eradicate the frogs from you and your homes so that they remain only in the river?" You would think that given this option to choose a time to remove the plague, the Pharaoh would say, "End it immediately." But instead, to our surprise, he says, "By tomorrow." So Moses said, "It will be as you say, so that you will recognize that there is none like God, our God." Then in verse 8, the Torah describes how Moses gets rid of the plague of frogs. Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh's presence, and Moses screams out to God concerning the frogs that he had brought upon the Pharaoh. God then listens and the frogs die. This terminology of screaming out to God to end this plague is very unique. For in the other plagues, it's mentioned that Moses prays to God to remove the affliction. Even in this plague itself, the Pharaoh summoned them and said, "Pray to your God." Why then, when it came to stopping the frogs, did Moses scream out to God and not just pray? Commentaries provide a fascinating insight into this anomaly. They explain that the plague of frogs was to a large degree a plague of disturbance. The constant noise made by the frogs created an environment of unbearable disruption for the Egyptians. Everyone can relate to the difficulty of functioning amidst a persistent noise. It becomes nearly impossible to concentrate, to live comfortably, and to maintain one's routine. This was the essence of the plague of the frogs. It wasn't just about the physical presence of the frogs going into literally everything, including the ovens, but the relentless noise they created, causing tremendous anxiety, headaches, and disruptions to daily life. The Egyptians couldn't carry on with their normal activities because of the overwhelming noise. They couldn't sleep. They were going meshuggah. When Moses screams out to God to remove the frogs, it wasn't merely a plea for relief. The noise was so intense that Moses had to raise his voice just to hear himself speak and properly pray. From this, the commentaries derive an important lesson. When we pray, our prayers should be audible to ourselves. This doesn't mean we need to shout, but we should be able to hear our own voice during prayer. Silent reading can often lead to distraction, while an audible prayer helps us focus, connect with the words, and truly appreciate what we're saying. However, it's important to note that our prayers should not be so loud as to disturb those praying around us, nor so quiet that we cannot hear it ourselves. The proper way to pray is that your prayers should be heard only by you. This teaching from Parshas Va'era encourages us to enhance our prayers by ensuring that they are audible to ourselves. By doing so, we can improve our concentration and deepen our connection to the words we recite. When we pray with focus and clarity, it elevates us, as the connection made during davening is a deep and uplifting one. May this insight help us to focus more intently on our prayers, allowing us to connect with the words and appreciate their meaning, thereby enriching our spiritual lives. I wish you a good Shabbos.